First Guardians of the Galaxy film was one of the biggest surprises of Disney's MCU. When it was announced, some speculated that it was the film that was finally going to cause the MCU to stumble after a long series of box office hits. Yeah, remember those days? Anyway, it became one of the MCU's biggest success stories, winning over audiences with a mixture of action, humor, and good performances by its cast. This was even more impressive considering that the most notable aspect of the Guardians' characters was how obscure they were. Calling the Guardians D-list characters was almost charitable, as only the most devoted of comic book fans were familiar with them. Under the direction of James Gunn, known mainly for his work in low-budget horror films like Slither, Guardians gave audiences arguably the most surprising and enjoyable new sci-fi film franchise since the original Star Wars. Guardians of the Galaxy felt like a cousin to Farscape, with its mix of adventure, fun, bizarre aliens, and sometimes borderline inappropriate humor. The characters became among the most popular in the MCU after the original Avengers, and their on screen success continued with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 and appearances in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Now, after multiple delays due to James Gunn's abrupt dismissal from Marvel and his subsequent return, as well as the pandemic, we're finally getting Guardians of the Galaxy 3. But how does it measure up to the previous Guardians films? Does James Gunn still have it? Is this the end of the road for the Guardians? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Classic Comics. This is my review of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Since the film has already been out for a week, I'll be getting into spoilers for this, so if you haven't seen the film, you may want to do that before watching this video. So, this movie picks up sometime after we last saw the Guardians in Thor Love and Thunder. Will is despondent after Gamora rejected him, and he's been getting drunk most of the time. Gamora, meanwhile, has joined the Ravagers. The other Guardians are helping get Nowhere back into shape after the events of Infinity War and Endgame. Then Adam Warlock arrives and attacks them. Now, you may remember Adam Warlock was teased at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy 2. He goes after Rocket, but Nebula wounds him and he retreats. Rocket is badly injured, though, and because he has some sort of fail-safe device built into his heart, he's going to die in 48 hours unless a computer code can be downloaded into it. The Sovereign sent Adam Warlock to catch Rocket because the High Evolutionary wants to study his brain, since Rocket was the only one of his experimental subjects who was ever able to become inventive. He wants to transfer that trait into his other experimental subjects as well. The Guardians learn where they can get the failsafe code on an organic space station that is the headquarters for a corporation the High Evolutionary controls. However, after breaking into the station, they learn that the code was already downloaded by one of the High Evolutionary's minions, and then they need to track down the High Evolutionary's location. They trace the High Evolutionary to Counter Earth, a duplicate of Earth that he created and populated with anthropomorphic animals. The High Evolutionary has decided that Counter Earth is a failed experiment, though, and he wipes out the entire planet, intending to start over. It all ends with a climactic battle on board the High Evolutionary's ship. So, overall, I really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy 3. It's easily the best MCU film since Spider Man No Way Home. It's not as good as the first Guardians film, but I think it's pretty comparable to the second one. It's not perfect, though. The main issue I have with the film is that it feels a bit too long. There's a lot going on in this movie, and aside from Rocket's origin and the conflict with the High Evolutionary, most of the story elements don't get developed well. Quill wanting to renew his romance with Gamora is a part of the plot, and that gets handled decently well, but Gamora seems needlessly hostile to Quill, Nebula, and the other Guardians for no clear reason. Also, Adam Warlock is introduced, but little is done with him. He shows up and attacks the Guardians, then retreats, then shows up and attacks again later, then gets captured, and then just sort of hangs around until the end. The actor who plays the High Evolutionary, and I hope I'm saying his name right here, Chukwudi Iwuji, is good as the villain. The comic book version of the High Evolutionary isn't as outright villainous as this one is, but it works for the story that James Gunn is telling, and he's probably the best villain in an MCU film since Thanos. Perhaps the film's most impressive accomplishment is how much it makes you empathize for a talking CGI raccoon. Rocket's origin is really heartbreaking, and it's clearly the best part of the film. The inclusion of Adam Warlock, though, feels very tacked on, and those who are fans of the comic book version of the character are going to be disappointed, as this is Adam Warlock in name only. He's named Adam Warlock, and he sort of looks like Adam Warlock, but other than that, this is a different character. His power set is different. He's also a bit of an idiot, and his personality and motivations are all different as well. I'm not even sure why he's included in this film, honestly, other than that James Gunn teased him at the end of the last film, so he feels obligated to include him here. Other than that, there's a lot happening, but it doesn't really add up to much. The Guardians sneak into a facility to get a failsafe code, then learn they have to sneak into another place to get it instead. So the movie kind of feels like it's wasting time. This movie's about 2.5 hours long, and honestly, it could have been cut down a good 20 minutes easily, I think, maybe even more. The film is also a bit frustrating in that it repeatedly teases the deaths of different characters. Drax, Rocket, and Quill all seem like they're all going to die at different points, but then none of them do. The film also has multiple endings as we see the various Guardians moving on with their lives at the end. Nebula and Drax take on new responsibilities, while Mantis decides to leave. Rocket and Groot then form a new team of Guardians with Adam Warlock and some other members, while Peter Quill goes to Earth to visit his grandfather. There's been an expectation that this is going to be the end of James Gunn's Guardians films, but the film teases that both the Guardians and Star-Lord are going to return, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. These are all just nitpicks, though. Overall, Guardians of the Galaxy is a fun, entertaining movie, and I think it's going to satisfy most fans. It's also mercifully absent of the standard MCU tropes, such as female characters outshining all the male characters, or the males all being idiots or useless wimps. The film's not perfect, but it's definitely not woke either. The question is, where does the MCU go from here? The MCU has few franchises left now that carry a great deal of popularity in and of themselves, rather than simply being popular because they're part of the MCU. Let me know what you thought of the film and my review in the comments, and please like this video before you leave, and sub to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you all next time. Thanks for watching.